It's SVG.
25 minutes on to 11 o'clock here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You're locked on to WEFM 99.9, the Clean Fresh Sound, and this is your It's Your Time program. Remember, It's Your Time is an interactive program, so the numbers to call are 457-9997 if you're calling from a local landline, 532-9997 if you're calling from a digital cell phone, or you can send us a message or call us on WhatsApp at 457-9997. The It's Your Turn program is being hosted by Mr. Cecil Ryan and Mr. Philbert John. Good morning to you, Cecil.
Good morning to you, Karen, and good morning to Philbert and my niece who's in studio with us, but she's not appearing on camera or on the mic. And good morning to all our listeners, wherever you are. Greetings to you and welcome to another Issue at Hand program. Today is really, it's already the 1st of March. Imagine that. Yes, today is the 1st of March, and we're marching into History and Heritage Month. Of course, this is the month of national hero Joseph Chatoué, March 14th, and of course, we know that in March we put up a lot of reminder actually of our struggles as Vincentian people, as indigenous people. Philbert, over to you.
Yes, Cecil, good morning and thank you. Good morning to all of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and to all persons listening to WEFM. It's a beautiful day. And as Cecil said, we're marching into National Heroes Month and National Heritage Month. And let us hope that we appropriately commemorate the period, as there are so many things happening in the world today. And let us hope that the butcher of the north, let us hope that he cools down. And like I said, we wish you all the best.
Yeah, John, like you, I just hope that the butcher cools down a bit. I mean, it's just from one victim to the next, to the next, to the next. And it may not appear as if he is the butcher, but he is in fact the main butcher. When you look at, he's the one who calls the shots, who presses the button, who gives the command. And at the end of the day, if a trial is to be done, he is the one who would be subjected to the questioning and perhaps even hopefully convicted, because he is the man, And it's sad when you listen to what's happening around the world. And, it makes you numb. It makes you numb, really. But it's unfortunate, and it's more than unfortunate, really.
I think what bothers me more than anything else is that traditionally these events appear to be far away from us.
Mm-hmm.
No connection, but we can't see that this time.
Mm-mm.
Look at what happened in the Southern Grenadines recently.
And they seem to be happening simultaneously.
Yes.
And in fact, in the State of the Union address to the Congress of the United States, just this last week, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, basically made a joke of the bombing of the fishermen. And in fact, there's an article written by Professor Justin Robinson. I want to read part of it today, if time permits. He referenced it in that article, how Trump, President of the United States, made a joke of bombing fishermen, poor, harmless fishermen. And he's making a joke. In the same sense that the same person we were talking about a while ago, the same butcher, he made a joke of the recent killing of the president, not the president, in Iran, the supreme leader of Iran. It's sad. That's where the world is. And us here in the Caribbean, at least one of our leaders, is lighting the candle and holding a candle for the same ones we're talking about up north. And went to the meeting in St. Kitts last week and made bold of it. And who don't like it, she said, bathe or something, or wash, something like that. I just, it's amusing if it wasn't serious, but it's so deadly serious that it isn't really amusing. It's existential. It's our life and our living, the people of the Caribbean, and death. And it's so sad. But that's where we are. To the pigeon, let's just to let our listeners know that we're going to be we're going to have a reflection and a review at the meeting, the CARICOM meeting, the 50th anniversary conference that was held at the Marriott Hotel in St. Kitts. Well, it's St. Kitts Nevis, St. Kitts and Nevis. And we have to assist us along Dr. Emmanuel Kwashi. He's going to join us via video link from Jamaica. People know that he's a lecturer, a Vinci lecturer in Jamaica in international relations. So he will be joining us this morning. In fact, shortly, very shortly, because we have a very tight time frame. He himself is very busy, he said, preparing for coursework, lecturing, and exams and supervising exams, setting exams, and himself preparing for a conference. I believe he has a paper preparing. He didn't tell me that, but I believe that's what he's working on. So he's a very busy man, and he's going to spare us just a window this morning, and we appreciate him being able to do that. So we're going to have to we won't be able to say much before he comes on, but I'm sure when he leaves the program, we would have a chance to discuss some of the things he might raise and some of the things that have come to our own attention, Pigeon, during the week in terms of things coming out of the 50th anniversary conference in Jamaica and also other things that's happening around us. And even as I said at Pigeon, we just received notification that he's online already. And so we're going to right away greet him and bring him in and let us go into it because, as I said, the time with him is limited this morning. All right, here we go. So, Dr. Kwashi, good morning to you.
Morning.
How are you doing? Good to have you on. How are you doing?
Yes. I'm all right. Can you guys hear me well, right?
Yes, we're hearing you well.
Okay, then. Good. Hello. Good morning to everyone. Good morning to my Vinci folks as well. I wanted to say it's a blessed morning, but I don't think it's a blessed one. I know we are supposed to speak about the CARICOM recent heads of government meeting, but I must admit that my attention as of recent shifted to what is taking place in the Middle East.
Yes,
and I think I might not be the only person in that ship right now, in terms of our minds sailing towards that, or our attention being focused on what is happening in the Middle East, because it also affects us as well. Even though we are not in close geographical proximity to what is taking place, we live in a world in which um, our economies are interconnected with each other because we are in the era of globalization. So what happens there also affects us as well. Um, but I just want to switch really quick to the CARICOM, and then I can jump to that just a little bit, and then I leave
Okay.
because what happened, I also had to include what is happening now in the Middle East in my upcoming seminars. So
Okay.
even me myself had to be making some adjustments
Mhm.
to some of the presentations I have coming up very soon.
Okay.
And of course, as you said, I'm also occupied and busy with midterm exams as well. I recently came back from a trip which I visited several Caribbean states, and I was doing some research as well. So I not too long returned back to Jamaica. So I have to be catching up with a lot of work as well. But let me get straight into it and right into to it. My thoughts on the CARICOM 50th Heads of Government meeting, for me, I will say seems to be the same sort of narrative that we have seen in recent times. I was really expecting more. I waited with bated breath and jaded cynicism, hoping that a leader will emerge who will um, categorically and unequivocally not only stand with our allies and friends who have helped us for so many years, but also taking the opportunity to really condemn the U.S. actions in the presence of the U.S. chief diplomat at the time, even though the president of the United States will remain so, but the U.S. Secretary of State is no doubt also a chief representation of the United States government. And given that Marco Rubio was present, I was hoping that they would have been more forceful in condemning the US illegal actions in terms of international law, regardless of one's personal feelings or opinions of a particular state or a particular leader of a state. International law dictates that we shall not act as animals or act with such barbarism. And the reason why it was created in the first place is so that we would not see the same scourge of World War One and World War Two. We would not see this sort of wantonly cruel violence that devastated all of Europe during World War Two and really devastated the global economy. And this destroyed so many innocent lives. But now we are seeing a foreign policy that is a throwback to that time, to the pre-international law time. And when I say pre-international law, even though again national law is very old and older than World War Two, because we can go all the way back to the Westphalian Treaty, etc., and so on. But what I'm saying in terms of the engagements of war and the rules of war, and you can't simply just declare war for a criminal matter. Drug trafficking and dealing with crimes related to narcotics or illicit drug trafficking is a criminal act, and it should not become under an act of war, which again in itself is a ludicrous approach to dealing with illicit drug. In fact, why didn't the Trump administration use the ship rider agreement to which the United States actually, ringed even some Caribbean states, and in many ways, promise us things such as NAFTA, the parity for the Caribbean Basin Initiative, in order for some Caribbean states to sign on. They promised others like Jamaica, and I think also Barbados as well, reciprocity in order for them to sign on to the ship rider agreement. The point I'm making here is that there are legal instruments to which the United States is a signatory member to dealing with illicit drug trafficking within the Americas. So you did not need to start a war on drugs, just like the war on terror is also a foolish war, which is the reason why you still have the mess in the Middle East today in the first place. So I was hoping that CARICOM heads would have been more forceful. But of course, we also saw some of the rift at the meeting that existed prior to the meeting. Particular highlights will be the Prime Minister of Trinidad. She was resolute in her support for the Trump administration, even while evidence emerged that many of the boats that were bombed were fishermen and citizens of Caribbean states, innocent men. Recently, there was a recent report of another alleged attack just before the meeting that killed about 3 fishermen. The St. Lucian Prime Minister also talked about it prior to the meeting. There was an alleged report of parts of the boat in our sovereign water off the shores of Canawan. So all of these things needed to be addressed in a forceful manner because, believe it or not, many of our Caribbean nationals are anxious and fearful, and they have a right to be as well. Because you cannot have a state bombing fishermen boat and just labeling everybody as a narco terrorist. It means that you and I and anyone who wishes to go out and fishing, because you don't have to be a fisherman. We know that is how it is in the Caribbean. Sometimes we go out and do it as a sport. Sometimes we want to go out and fish on our own. We can be subjected to a US drone strike and then labeled as a narco terrorist, somebody who was carrying drugs, which is not the case. The Jamaican Prime Minister, of course, he came under some fire from a member in the US Congress because of some of his statement that he made in supporting Cuba. But his statement to me was not even self that strong because most of it was actually pro United States. But even that did not please the United States because you cannot please a bully at all, no matter what you do. You cannot. You understand? So even when he tried to take a more balanced approach, a balancing act, it still was not enough for some of the more far right extremist supporters of the Trump administration who clearly have no concern for humanity at all. So they're just bombing boats and they're bombing and they're just making these wild claims and accusations about them being narco terrorists. I do not also subscribe to that term either, because there's no such thing as a narco terrorist. You know, labeling persons that to make the issue more salient and to justify your illegal act under international law, you know, again speaks to the ludicrousness of all of this. But then when the Jamaican Prime Minister highlighted that CARICOM is not a political union, that jumped out to me. And I'm going to tell you why. While he is right in the technical sense, it was a tone deaf statement given the current situation in that is taking place in our Caribbean waters. Now was the time for a speech of unity, not a divisive speech. And making statement that we are not a political union within the sense that because CARICOM is really an intergovernmental organization made up of sovereign member states, and it is different to the OECS, which have elements of political union because of our supranational authority. We have decided to pool some of our sovereignty to our supranational authority. In this case, we have the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. We have a single currency, which, you know, make us more of a political union as opposed to CARICOM. We don't have that. We also have full freedom of movement within the OECS, and in CARICOM we have partial, meaning that you are allowed to enter a CARICOM states, but you only have 6 months. And if you want to stay indefinitely and work, you have to get what is known as a CSME certificate, which is different in the OECS. We do not require that. In fact, we can travel to some of the Eastern Caribbean states just using our national IDs alone. So yes, within that comparative sense, if you to compare and contrast CARICOM and OECS, he is not wrong there in that sense, but it was not a statement that should have been made given the current political atmosphere. Read the room. So these are some of the things that jump out at me. And I was really hoping that they would have also talked to Secretary Rubio about the illegal trafficking of guns from the United States, that it actually is the main tool arsenal that is being used in the crime and violence that has permeated our Caribbean countries. In fact, the same people involved in drugs and narcotic crimes is because of the ease of access to these high-powered weapons, which again, many of our policemen might not have the ability or the capacity to deal with some of them. Why don't we have a much more diplomatic solution, a much more rational one, and act like civilized nation states? This uncivilized behavior and rogue behavior propagated by the Trump administration via Donald Trump's revamping of the old Monroe Doctrine, which is now nicknamed Donroe Doctrine, you know, is not going to serve the United States and neither the Caribbean's interests at all. So that is my general view so far of CARICOM meeting. I really don't think that that much was really achieved. I think that it was more of a balancing act, and leaders tried to mince their word and offer the usual platitudinous statements, and try to be very careful not to anger the Trump administration. That's what I think. That's what I think. Most of their statements seem to have leaned towards, with the exception of Trinidad, of course, who was explicitly supportive of this Trump administration and so on. But I was a bit distracted with what is happening in the Middle East now. So if I can touch on that as well and connect
Of
it
course.
before,
course.
right. So while the CARICOM event recently concluded, another episodic event started right after that, and it shifted our attention as well, because again, as I said, what happened in the Middle East will also affect us as well, particularly if Iran decides to close the Strait of Hormuz, which accounts for approximately 20 to 30 percent of global trade, and in terms of oil as well. So we might be seeing higher prices at the pump, in terms of gas, etc., and so on. So this is something that should be a concern to all Caribbean citizens as well. And recent development with the assassination of the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, again has now put this situation in a more dangerous position. Because what people need to understand, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was not just the supreme leader of Iran in terms of its head of state and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, but also he was the political and religious authority. And he was also a spiritual figure for millions of Shia Muslims, in particularly the 36 million Shia Muslim in the Middle East and Shia Muslims around the world as well. So what I believe that may happen, of course, the war is going to escalate more now. But not only that, you might find lone wolf terrorism attacks in the coming days, in the coming weeks, in the coming months or so. And as somebody who writes extensively in terrorism, this is one of my concerns. So again, this war is not just going to stay within the Middle East. It is not just going to be limited within the Middle East. It's going to meet us within the Western world through lone wolf attacks as well. And that is one of my concerns. And I think some persons might not look at that, but if you speak to terrorist experts as well, I believe that will also be part of their analysis. And it should, because if you really go through the history of terrorism and so on, you will understand it would not be a new phenomenon at all. So this is another concern for me as well. And again, we are seeing that, this Trump administration is acting with inhumane and cruel violence around the world, not just in the Caribbean alone. You bomb Venezuela, you kidnap their president. You are now starving Cuba. Starving Cuba. because the US embargo that was placed on it since 1962 was not enough. So Trump decided he's going to ramp it up because, again, it's about regime change in Cuba, just like it was in Venezuela. And it's about regime change and oil in Iran as well. There's a whole history behind that. This is why they want to install the Shah. What's his name? Um, Pahlavi, who is a descendant from Mohammed Reza Pahlavi, who was
Mhm.
actually installed by the United States, I
Mhm.
think in 1953 or so,
Mhm.
after they overthrew the democratically elected Prime Minister Mohammed Rosade, Mohammed, what's his name again? Um, Mossadegh.
Mhm.
After they overthrew him, and they overthrew him because he wanted to stand up for his people. He said that the oil in Iran should go to the benefit of the Iranian people. But of course, the US and the UK did not agree with that. So they wanted to take control of the oil to the benefit, of course, of the United States. And then they installed the Shah. And then in 1979, guess what happened? The Iranian Revolution that overthrew the Shah because, again, of the Shah's brutal tactics to the use of a secret police known as Savak.
Mhm.
So people need to understand that the animosity between the US and Iran isn't something that just happened the other day. This has been
Mhm.
going on for decades during the Cold War. Part of it was also because of the Cold War as well. Yes, it was oil, but also the United States did not want Iran to come under the influence of the Soviet Union as well. Part of their whole ideological war during the Cold War as well. But of course, a major part of it was oil. They wanted to ensure that US firms and the UK at that time benefited from Iran's oil. But the democratically elected prime minister did not want that. He wanted it to benefit the Iranian people. But of course, they had to install their puppet, which is what they're trying to do now again,
Mhm.
right? And all of this violence that is taking place in the Middle East, Iran is responding by bombing US bases in Jordan, in Bahrain, in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and also the United Arab Emirates. And what is really depressing about all of this, it could have been avoided. There was
Mhm.
an Iran nuclear deal that was signed during the Obama administration. And Iran, based on the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is the IAEA, said that Iran was in full compliance. But Trump ripped it up when he came into power. He still ripped up the deal. They were negotiating a peaceful resolution in Oman. Oman hosted the negotiators. Oman was being the what is it called again? The there's a word for it. Sorry, I can't remember it
Yeah.
now. But Oman was um, helping with the negotiations at the time when the Trump administration and Israel decided to bomb Iran while they were negotiating. So again, this goes to show that with this administration, with the US administration, the Trump administration, might is right. They have no time for diplomacy at all. And it is not realism. I know some persons might like to use the theory of realism, but it is really not. Because realism is different. What this is jingoism, which is a form of foreign policy that is more aggressive and violent, which is different from realism. right? So we have to brace ourselves in the Caribbean, I believe, for a very difficult time ahead, economically, but also a bit of stability within the region. If the Trump administration goes ahead, and by all evidence, it looks as though they are going full steam ahead in trying to tackle the Cuban government as well. And I know that there might be some divide in terms of the Cuban doctors. Some might support um, them leaving, and some might argue against them leaving for one reason or the other. Some might feel that because the Cuban doctors might have a language barrier, and that might pose an issue within terms of healthcare. Some might have feel that in terms of not getting the job because the Cuban doctors will fill that space. And then others may feel a sense of guilt in the sense that Cuban doctors have helped us quite a lot. There's no denying that. And they have done a wonderful job in many ways. I've seen testimony of many persons who also give praises of the Cuban doctor's work. But at the end of the day, this is how I view it. Not from a medical expert standpoint, but from a human one and an international relations one, in the sense that as a sovereign nation state, we should not make foreign policy decision based on what another state wants us to do. If we want to expel the Cuban doctors, it should have been a decision by St. Vincent and the Grenadines government, and not a decision forced upon us by another state who wants to dictate our internal and foreign policy matters. And that for me is a major concern, because that speaks to the erosion of sovereignty, which is enshrined in international law, going dating all the way back to the 1648 Treaty of Westphalia. And that, there, my friends, is what concerns me. But I will say that.
And Dr. Koshi, I could listen to you all morning, but I just want to remind you of the time and your own time limit.
Yes. So
we could listen to you going on, and I mean, I just, I really appreciate you being with us this morning. But as I said, I'm giving a reminder of your time constraints.
Yes. So we will. So I will wrap it up here, and I will see you guys another time. I'm sorry.
Sometime soon, hopefully.
Time. Yes.
Soon.
But it is because I have a few other academic commitments that I have to complete, and some seminars that are also coming up, and the midterm season is also here, so that tends to be hectic. And then right after that, we go into UE's research day, which I think that actually is in a couple of weeks, if memory serves me right. I need to check the calendar, so that so it doesn't clash with some of my other seminar activities, etc., and so on. So this is the reason why
we appreciate you very much. The time you spent with us this morning has been full and enriching, very deep, and we hope that persons listening will be able to have taken in what you shared with us this morning. We thank you very much, and we look forward to having you again soon, if time permits.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, and thank you, Mr. Brian and Mr. John, and thanks to all the listeners as well. I hope you guys have a blessed Sunday. All right, bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Pigeon?
Yeah, quite interesting.
Very rich analysis, man. Comprehensive. Although he didn't spend us, I mean, but the time that he spent, just over about half an hour, actually, just before half an hour, it's rich, very rich analysis, really sound, based in history and his own contemporary research, and his knowledge is really good. He has covered, in my view, he's covered a lot of the important bases that we would like to point to in our discussion this morning. So hopefully we'll have him another time when this may not be the issue, but there are others. Anything from what he said you want to comment on?
The question keep going over my mind is, what can CARICOM do? And are we allowing the United States to run a wedge between the states, between CARICOM states, noting the varying views of Trinidad and Tobago, for instance? How are we going to deal with that?
Well, that's a pivotal question which we have to answer ourselves and come up with a solution. I don't know. Last week when Professor Robinson was on, he did make reference to a paper that he was working on. In fact, I have a copy of that paper, and I would want to read parts. Well, it's kind of long for the program this morning. But what he has, this is what he calls it. They want us to die. The Triple C crisis, the Caribbean person, and what we must do for ourselves. So he, in a way, he's offering some suggestions as to what he thinks we must do for ourselves. So I want to come to that a bit later. But it's interesting the way he phrased and pose the question, or the lead up to that question. But before that, Pigeon, I want to, in as much as Dr. Kwashi mentioned the CARICOM statement, I have it here, and I want to read it so that our listeners, those who are not quite familiar with it, they would hear it if they haven't heard it yet. And I want to read it this morning. It's a joint statement issued by CARICOM. Joint statement, I believe, with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio of the United States. And this is what it says. The heads of state and heads of government of the Caribbean community met on 25th February with the Secretary of State of the United States of America, Marco Rubio. The engagement was a highly constructive one, with a frank conversation regarding the essential interests of all parties. Well, clearly, let me finish and then I'll make my own comment. Given the strong historical, diplomatic, familial, and economic ties and cooperation over the years in matters of security, there was a clear platform for all to continue to work together to build a stronger, safer, more secure, and prosperous Caribbean and United States of America. In other words, a stronger, safer, more secure, and prosperous neighborhood. Okay. It was agreed that it was appropriate to calculate a cooperation framework appropriate to the 21st century to support the needs and interests of the Caribbean community and the USA. This framework should, note the word, use of the word, this framework should address a structured migration program, security cooperation, trade and investment, disaster recovery, human development, and technical assistance. It was recognized that the last serious and coherent engagement between members of the Caribbean community and the USA was almost 50 years ago under President Reagan. The matter of the challenging situation in Cuba was discussed. All parties recognized that there should be efforts to address the growing humanitarian crisis. The Caribbean community, cognizant of its very close relationship with both Cuba and the USA, and mindful of the extent to which the region can be negatively affected, is willing to participate in any way that will redound to the benefit of the Cuban people while maintaining regional stability. That's the statement, Pijan, and persons listening. Any comment?
Why was it necessary to emphasize should?
Me, in my case?
Yeah.
Well, it should. It didn't say this is what we are going to do to ensure what they're saying, what followed. They say should. It's open. Anybody could do anything. To me, that's what the use of the word should means. In other words, the US doesn't change the price of eggs. The US can do what it wants. I guess the CARICOM countries could do what they're able to do. So it doesn't change the price of anything. It says should. And you notice in both cases where the US is very careful in terms of their diplomatic language. So I don't know, Pijan, you asked me why I emphasize should. Does it make a difference to you?
Should suggest possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I think the word is subjunctive.
It doesn't suggest commitment,
Yeah.
Which to me, a forum like that and a meeting of that nature should have, as Dr. Kwashi indicated, he's kind of pointed to that, should have be formal in terms of commitment. What are you committed to do? This is the 50th conference of the heads of government of CARICOM, and you're meeting with the number 3 man insofar as the ranking of the US is concerned. There's the president, if in terms of replacement, the president, the vice president, and then comes the secretary of state. That's the order. So you're meeting with the 3rd man in power, and not only that, but he sits all the time with Donald Trump. So as Dr. Kwashi said, there should have been frank and straightforward exchanges, and in fact, out of that, firm commitment insofar as what will be done.
2 instruments of Caribbean-U.S. relations come to mind that we seem to have ignored over the years. References now being made to the Shipwriters Agreement.
Which is what Dr. Kwashi
just mentioned. So we should remind our listeners that the Shipwriters Agreement is an agreement that calls on allow the Americans to board any suspect ship in the region, in the Caribbean waters. And I know that generated a lot of discussion over the years. The other one that we don't hear much about is the Caribbean Basin Initiative, which facilitates trade arrangements between the Caribbean
and the US.
And the US.
Mm-hmm.
We don't hear much about those. And out of the discussion recently, still there has been nothing coming forward that would review or revise these arrangements. It seemed to just happen according to what Trump requires. Whatever he seemed to be setting the agenda
all the time
for the Caribbean, and the question still looms: what can the Caribbean do? What can the region do to ease the arrangements and the concerns of both sides.
And that is why I emphasize when I was reading the document, the two instances, the word should, because it's neither here nor there. They should do this, so they won't do it, or they don't do it, so what? That's what it implies to me, the use of the word should. In the two instances where it was mentioned in the statement, there was one where they talked about Cuba. All parties recognized that there should be efforts to address the growing humanitarian crisis. There should be efforts, but they didn't commit themselves to a particular set of efforts. There should be. And there was the other one. Yeah. This framework should, meaning they were saying they need to come up with an appropriate framework, a cooperations framework for the 21st century, and that this framework should address a structured migration program. It's neither here nor there, really. And Professor Dr. Kwashi was correct when he said there was no firmness coming out of that meeting on those critical issues. And the other thing he pointed out was that given the crisis that we have in the Caribbean with the use of guns in violence, that should have been uppermost on the agenda. That was not mentioned. It's not mentioned in the statement. So it means that they didn't talk about that either.
And it seems as if we are forgetting also that Cuba is a creation, the current conditions under which Cubans exist was largely created by the United States.
Well,
beginning with the embargo.
Which happened from 1962
up to this day.
Yeah.
And rather than easing it, it seemed to be putting more and more pressure on Cuba.
Well, as Dr. Kwashi he suggested, and I agree, that the ultimate goal is quote unquote regime change again in Cuba. I think that's where they
you think it's just regime change? Regime change suggests just changing the government.
Well, that is what they would want to do in the first place. I think that's what the US wants to do. In fact, the pattern is that's what it is. They did it they tried to do it in Venezuela just yesterday, and they overnight, over the past year, they tried trying to do it in Iran. And I believe Cuba is their next target. But they're doing these things to have cumulative effect. And Cuba will be the next target insofar as that is concerned. That is what do you think Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago at the CARICOM thing, the most useful statement she made is that the system in Cuba, communism, has to change to capitalism. You remember she said that in her statement there?
I didn't hear it, but...
yeah, that's what she said. And more than that, I think, and she thanked the President of the United States and the Secretary, the Secretary, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, to back up her call or the main point in our statement. So, and there you go, again, using the CARICOM framework to give support to what they intend to do ultimately. And that is why, as Dr. Kwashi said, that congressman in the United States, he chanted, more than chanted really, Prime Minister Holness for making statements. I mean, what Prime Minister Holness says was very tame, and yet he found it necessary to point that out. So to my mind, what they're trying to do is to, within the context of CARICOM, trying to create division such that whatever they intend to do with respect to Cuba will be that much easier.
Much more palatable to
Much more palatable, you're right. And Pigeon, I don't know if you've picked it up yet, but the Honduras has over the last few days expelled the Cuban medical mission. They have done that.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, it's on. It's yeah. I have a piece here on it, and well, it's a follow through on what they did, the pressure they put on Antigua and Antigua and Barbuda, which has already expelled. Well, not expelled, but they've said that the students will no longer be going to Cuba for medical training. So there's a lot of pressure coming from that, from the north.
That's a pressure coming from the north, and I can't recall hearing any substantive statements coming from our own government regarding the Cuban medical missions and medical students studying in Cuba.
Well, Pigeon, more than that, I have a clip here. I'll play it now, even as you raise that. That is a response that Prime Minister Friday gave to a journalist who asked for a response to the meeting in St. Kitts. Here is his response.
For the Western Hemisphere, including the Caribbean, how far should the Caribbean look towards that?
Well, we're always hopeful for any interest that is shown towards us, especially when there is good intent. Because sometimes with us being, small countries, small island developing states and so forth, we can get overlooked. Our interest can be, put not on the front burner. The notion that there's some focus here. Of course, we have the things that we are particularly interested in that we will put on the agenda. But the focus has to be there for the agenda to matter. So it's good that that focus is now coming.
Were you satisfied with his quote-unquote easing up of the situation regarding Cuba?
Well, I don't know that, the particular matter with Cuba is complex. And, I'd rather leave that for the heads who are designated to deal with.
And on Venezuela?
And similarly.
So that was Prime Minister Friday's response to the questions posed by this. Sounds like a Dominican or St. Lucian journalist. So our country, it seems to me, to have a position on those matters.
It's not a clearly defined position.
We should have a position on those matters. Question of Cuba, question of Venezuela, and of course the question of the medical mission, which has been so pivotal in our health system in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as it has been in the rest of the Caribbean. Well, we haven't come to that particular one yet, but I'm sure the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines will call the government to account. In the meantime, Bijan, I want us to now open up. People may wish to make comments of their own and clarify certain ideas they have in their head. So let's now open up, and we can come back later on to do a few other things, including the statement from Professor Robinson. I'll begin to read parts of it. So the number to call is 457-9997 to join our conversation this morning. And you can call straight, or you can call us via WhatsApp or 532-9997. You also will get us when you call those two numbers. And of course, this is Issue at Hand on WEFM. And as I always say, Issue at Hand, a family affair. You are part of the Issue at Hand family, and WEFM, certainly, you are part of the Issue at Hand family. You're part of the WEFM family. Actually, I had a song to line up to play, but I'll play it another time. We have a call. Let's take this one. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Cecil Ryan, good morning.
Good morning to you. And this song like Mr. Weeks, Lansford Weeks. Greetings.
Yes, that's him. Pigeon, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
I want to say hello to your listeners, wherever they are, whatever they're doing at this time, while they're listening to It's Your Turn. Again, another excellent program so far, gentlemen.
Thanks.
And it brings me a lot of pride as we hear persons like Dr. Emmanuel and Professor Robinson articulating their views with respect to international relations, and particularly how these matters affect us in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I pay attention to their writings, and it is excellent. I hope those in our schools, the teachers, are hearing and reading these things and are directing the students under their charge to these writings. Because it's not only the content. I mean, the content is quite relevant, very informative, etc. But the style of writing, which is something I always pay attention to, it is worth emulating, and our young people trying to copy and make themselves better communicators. I pay attention to Professor Robinson writings, and you can see the art in it. It's not just the social science, but there's evidence of art. Jen, I think this is something that you also pay attention to.
Yes.
And I don't know if you recognize it in the way that I do. In that short presentation, Cecil, there's so much to be further discussed. The issue of the Cuban situation of Cuba, you guys are right. What exists in Cuba today is a direct consequence of how the United States treated the Cuban society and the Cuban people, not just after the revolution, because the revolution in part was to deal with the way the Americans viewed Cuba and how they treated Cuba. We must not forget that. We often take it up from a particular point. I mean, when I visited Cuba and I passed through old Havana, where many years, decades after the Cuban Revolution, and you see the properties that the Cuban government, the revolutionary government, left and did not touch because they were owned by Americans, and it seemed to me like they did not want to get into problems. The Americans owned a significant part of Havana. And when you hear the activities that they carried on in Havana and in Cuba, generally, that was all part of what drove the revolution. Now, despite these challenges that Cuba has faced from our American neighbors, they have done excellent in terms of developing their people, developing their country. You look at the roads, the traffic on the road, and you see the engineering capacity of the Cubans being able to maintain vehicles from the 1950s and 1960s and have them running on the road, despite not being able to buy parts from outside of Cuba as freely as they would like to. You look at their education system, where education is free up to a university level. And they just produce top quality graduates, some of whom we have benefited from in St. Vincent and the Grenadines over the years. And this is something that touched me personally, because I know how much Vincentians benefit from the Cuban doctors who have come to serve us in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Notwithstanding the language barrier, and I don't see it as a barrier, it's a challenge that the folks in the system work with to overcome. It's always better if you can have somebody who knows the dialect. And so, but given the competence of the Cubans, along with those from St. Vincent who work alongside them, I know that we have benefited tremendously from them. Cecil, there was a difficulty. I hear the officials now. And by the way, I want to declare that I am not bitter. Because when you talk like this, those all the responses that you're bitter. And you're bitter. I'm not bitter. But I know the challenge that we had, why the Cubans doctor ended up working in the districts. I was there. I can give you one incident. We hired a Vincentian doctor, a young doctor, a good gentleman. We rented a house for him in Sandy Bay. He was to serve the 4 clinics over the Dry River and their population. And the parliamentary representative at the time went to cabinet and asked why the Ministry of Health is not providing a doctor. And when we checked it out, the doctor that we provided had left the community without even informing the ministry. The Cubans were there for weeks. Sorry, the Vincentians living in that vicinity were there for weeks without a district doctor. And given the kind of medical service, the kind of health service that we provide, the district doctor is critical in all of it because our focus is on primary health and primary health care. And the district doctor is an integral part of that. And our Vincentian brother just basically left the people there without that service and did not even inform the ministry so that we could have sent a replacement. Up to today, I heard trade union is talking about hard area allowance. They want to negotiate hard area allowance. Where in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is hard area?
Yeah, gotta be a joke. Yeah.
Where in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is a hard area? In the Grenadines? Where persons pay thousands of dollars to travel from far and near to come have the time of their life? You calling that hard area? Of the persons who live above the area? You calling those hard areas? And that's the kind of attitude that we have suffered from in this country over the years, where our nationals look down on others, depending on where they are from. If they're in the Grenadines, you see them a certain way. If they're from North Leeward, you see them a certain way. And that is part of what we had the Cubans helping us to overcome. They give us a team, doctor, pharmacists, etc. Look at those that are serving us in Georgetown. And they're not serving persons from Georgetown only. They're serving Vincentians from wherever. And not just Vincentians. because it appeared to me that the service there is so good and the price is so reasonable that there are persons from neighboring countries who come to St. Vincent to benefit from that service.
Mhm.
This is what we are getting rid of. This is what we are expelling. We have a lot of Vincentians who are looking for jobs. But it doesn't mean that we can hire them and put them to work alongside the Cubans. So that both parties, those from Cuba and those from St. Vincent, can learn from each other and develop and grow. I look forward to seeing how this expelling and getting rid of the Cubans from our districts, how that is going to help us. I hope we have improved from the time when we had to send the Cubans into the districts to work. If you look at where they were not in Stubbs and Kaliako and Belay. They were not at those clinics. They were at clinics where it was difficult to get Vincentians to go there to work. The issue of the communique, Cecil, I agree with you that you should put emphasis on the should. Because what that shows to me, or what I get from that seems like your notes that you prepared to go into the meeting. That doesn't seem like an outcome from a meeting.
Yes.
You're going into the meeting, so you're going to ask the party that you're meeting with, we would like to have this. We would like to have that. So you should do this and you should do that. But you go in, and maybe you did not even discuss it. You're coming out here to fool your population, and you write a communique that both parties should have. What that is to us? What that means for us? There is no commitment, as you say, Cecil.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't say that the Americans are going to do anything for us. And as a matter of fact, why at this stage of our development, we still sit down and decide we must get this and we must get that from the U.S. We are at a stage of our development that we must recognize the resources that we have and work with it to develop ourselves. The Americans may not want to buy our bananas and our sweet potatoes and our mangoes in the U.S. at the price we would like to sell them at, but they certainly will pay more when they come to our country. They'll pay more for it. And if we get them to consume it here, we get more of it because it does not include shipping. The price we get, the amount that would have gone to shipping, it says right here. We have to use our resources and work hard to develop ourselves. That's what we have to do in the Caribbean. And this thing with the Prime Minister of Trinidad, Cecil, as a child growing up, all of my father's siblings migrated to Trinidad. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother migrated to Trinidad. And when I visited, I recognize the attitude, the way our people who went to Trinidad, how they were looked upon and how they were treated. I understood the racial issues then, and I believe what we're seeing in Caribbean politics today is an issue of race. I believe it is an issue of race. And where Trinidad want to isolate themselves, because if we work with them in the way they want to work with us, they will isolate themselves. I I don't know if they think that the products that they export to the Eastern Caribbean, that can export it to the U.S. and make the same money that they're making from the Eastern Caribbean, that they don't want to even pay hard currency for, so that we can use that money to buy things extra regionally and pay our bills. That's what Trinidad is doing to us. Not under this current government, but prior to this current government. And despite every effort by the politicians, despite every effort by the technocrats, those at the central bank in particular, the Trinidadians are not prepared to solve the problem. So if Trinidad want to feel that they are not ATM to give us U.S. currency for our products that we supply them with, or the significant monies they save in terms of tariffs from exporting to our country, and they don't want to share a bit of that with us, you can leave them with it all. We don't have to buy this stuff from them. We can get stuff from South America that are less costly. From Brazil, from Argentina, from other Central Mexico. Don't talk about Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
We can get stuff from them that are less costly than Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
Let Trinidad isolate themselves. As I say, Cecil, coming out of that small presentation
Mm-hmm.
from Dr. Emmanuel, it gives me a lot of pride and a lot of joy. I remember the days
I
when
think it's Dr. Kwashi.
Dr. Kwashi, thanks.
Yeah.
Emmanuel
thanks,
Kwashi.
Yes, thanks. See, both names are, we use them as surnames.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. It gives me a lot of joy because, Pigeon, you studied at Mona and you understand, I believe, the importance of these, who we refer to as, some of us refer to as intellects. I prefer to refer to them as academics. You see the contribution that they make to Jamaican society.
Yes, yes.
In terms of their commentary, in terms of their participation in commerce, in every aspect of Jamaican life. These persons who work at the University of the West Indies, Mona, make significant contribution. I'm really grateful that we have persons like Dr. Kwashi and Professor Robinson.
And of note, Lansford, they tend to be
Yes.
Away from partisanship in their commentary. I don't know if you noticed that.
I want to comment on that, this, Pijani. Maybe you need to read a bit more. Even as I talk about these two, I can't forget the others, gentlemen, because we know of the contribution of Pigeon's own brother,
Mm-hmm.
who is not at the University
Denny?
of West Indies anymore, I think. He's gone further, but he still finds time to contribute to our society, and we must recognize it. And as I end where I started, that those who are teaching and lecturing in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they must pay attention to these writings and these presentations, not only for content, yes, for content, because their content is excellent, their opinion, you should study them, because they form these opinions based on the knowledge that they arrive at during their studies and so forth. But their style of communication, I really enjoy it. Gentlemen, thank you for...
Before you go, Lansford, and let me put this, I have a WhatsApp inquiry from somebody. I want you to help me respond. It says, good morning. can someone / anyone please explain how any leader of an independent country could be instructed by an external entity to act not in the interests of his own country? That's basically what the person is saying.
I would answer by going back to something
I'm sorry, there's a part, and then he said, and proceeds to do so. You follow what I?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
all right. So yes.
In other words, I think that person is saying that currently that some of our leaders are being directed by persons from outside us.
Right.
That's what I got the person is saying.
Okay.
But I go back to the point I made. And if we take the persons who got into politics in the past, these are persons who had a lot of confidence in themselves and in our country, in our people, in our country. You can name them, especially the prominent ones, but I think all of them generally had a lot of confidence in themselves. They didn't see themselves as dependent on charity from any other country. They didn't see themselves as dependent on being a citizen of any other country. And I'm not just talking St. Vincent here. I'm talking generally across the Caribbean, from Jamaica all the way down. Because we know in Jamaica, we have seen it coming out in the courts, where the courts had to relieve them of their position as parliamentary representatives because they wanted to hold on to their foreign citizenship. Talking about Jamaica. We've seen it. We know about it. We read it. So when we now have a situation where our politicians, our leaders, are more concerned with what we as a nation get from persons, from entities outside of St. Vincent, when we are so caught up with our visas and so forth, as against the interest of our particular country. So we know international law and how international law protects us. And the membership of CARICOM should protect us by bringing small states with minimal resources together. But just being a state is supposed to provide us with certain protection under international law. And when we ignore that and ignore the strength of unity, we have to simply capitulate and do what they ask us to do. Look how Trinidad is praising the United States. You mean with all the oil money they had, they could not put things in place to reduce their crime? With all the oil money they had, and still have to a lesser extent, they could not put things in place to reduce the crime. You have to depend on Uncle Sam. And to that extent, after you have taken that position, you allow Uncle Sam to kill your citizens, and you simply have to ignore it. And in some cases, you go further than ignoring it. You're praising it.
Mm-hmm.
You're praising it. You praising a man sitting in the sky or wherever and simply shooting at your citizens and killing them. And that is good for you. That's what we have happening in the Caribbean today. Notwithstanding, there's international law that protects us against that. And then you have a situation where you can have 13 sovereign states speaking internationally and getting support from other countries, the 53 in Africa, and those from Asia, who need an international law to protect them as well. Instead of that, you simply capitulate. And you say what they want you to say. Even when they did not, you say it. You say that. I mean, this thing just gets you so upset.
Mm-hmm.
So the short answer to your question is, I believe our leaders are meek and weak. They pay more attention to themselves and material things than to what our nations are worth. And therefore, that's why they are being directed and they're doing the things that in their conscience must tell you that it is wrong. But they ignore it and they support it.
Lansford, lastly, in as much as you've made reference in the other part of your contribution to language, quote unquote, language barriers, somebody sent a WhatsApp. I want you to respond. I'll read it for you. It says, "Good morning, gentlemen. Language barriers has always plagued our health service. This is so way before we had Cuban doctors. We have always had Indians and Filipinos medical professionals whose first language was not English. So let's go easy on the Cubans who learn English really fast." So that's a response from somebody. Any reaction to that?
If I sound hard on the Cubans, it was really not my intention. The point I was saying, those are you who are using that as an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
Really not an excuse. I agree totally with the person who sent that text.
Yes.
I totally agree. I am one who in the past spoke about the Indians. I grew up with Indian doctors.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with Indian doctors serving as district medical officers. That's what I encountered when I went to the clinic for whatever medical purposes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand their English, but they treated me, and I trusted them. I believed in them. So I only spoke about the language barrier to highlight the excuse that some persons are making in wanting to throw out our Cuban brothers and sisters. Not long ago, we had severe shortages of nurses in St. Vincent. We brought in 21 nurses from Cuba, and we had that same kind of complaint. But when they were leaving, after the 2-year, 3-year, whatever the period was, the folks in the community where they work were very sad when they were leaving. You're right, Cecil. These people, they learn fast.
Yes. Well, that's it. The person who sent it, and incidentally, the person say he was really supporting you, not attacking, which is what you said. You recognize, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. He's gone. I was going to tell him feel free to come back in if he so wishes. But yes, I could hear the passion coming through Lansford's presentation. Pijan? Yeah. There's a passion. He says it for all of us, certainly for me, the way he has expressed those views. And again, I really appreciate the contribution from Dr. Kwashi this morning because he's touched, just about all the points that need to be touched. But even as somebody mentioned I think it was Landlord mentioned the question of racism in Trinidad. I want to play this. I want to play something here, a calypso from this year's season. I find it interesting. I hope some calypsonians are listening.
All your good, yes? I was lining with some old men before the election, and well, I was amazed of their discussion. They were discussing the election of 2025. How Africans were selling cheap and UNC buying dead or alive. One old man shout out, fellas, give me your attention. UNC can't win by themselves, no election. You see, they're sitting and they're planning to make a decision. So she called out Shilaga, who the old FIFA wanted man. She said, call the trade union, let we start negotiations. And we could call out a big sale and we go buy out some Africans. Africans for sale, we buying Africans. Sing the thing. Africans for sale, we buying Africans. She don't have all she chance and she the honor rhymes. No, what she need is some slave names, man, some big strong Africans. Africans for sale, we buying good or bad. Africans for sale, Jamaica and Trinidad. Oh, somebody pinch me. Hey! UNC sitting and they're waiting patiently. With about 16 safe seats, they don't win that already. The woman said, I have my people and they are born UNCs. Now all I need is some Africans who got their names out of slavery. She said that she here, they're really selling cheap. And she could buy them very cheap, 500 and a jersey. A lot of people will cry when she's finished with CPET. Because she is not holding back them PNM have nothing to get. She said it's party before country, all you never forget. She will care for her people and she have no blasting regret. Africans for sale, we buying Africans. She buying hands for sale, listen, we buying Africans. She said we like crab in a barrel, we pulling each other down. But I want their votes, so I jam them the winning song. And so they know it. Africans when UNC wins, everybody wins. Africans for sale, Jamaica and Trinidad.
Well, I just thought I'd should that one in is as much reference was made to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and what she said.
It was really a sad commentary.
I'm telling you, it's an interesting song. Yeah. I find it's from this year. Queen Victoria, I think is the name who did that song. From there, actually, she was banned from the Calypso semi-final.
For that?
Mm-hmm. She was banned. And she never made it to the final because she was banned. She was not. Not just.
If you take the lyrics seriously, it's really sad.
They're sad, yes. But to some extent, they're true.
I was going to ask if there's any truth to the sentiments expressed in that calypso.
She said the two men were discussing, so I believe they made the observation and came to that conclusion. All right, so the number to call is 457-9997, WhatsApp or straight. That would take you there. And if you wish to make any comment on what we've been discussing so far this morning, we've heard from Dr. Kwashi, and then we just heard from our good friend and colleague, Lansford Weeks. We had some WhatsApp messages in between. So, and we just played that song. So any of those things. We made our own commentary. Actually, I read the CARICOM statement coming out of the 50th anniversary conference that was held in St. Kitts, Nevis just last week. So if you wish to make a comment, you can call us this morning. Call us now. I also played the piece from Dr. Friday's response to a journalist who asked him to comment on their deliberation in respect to Cuba, the situation in Cuba, and also Venezuela. So if you wish to comment, please do so now. In the meantime, Pijan, we seem to be, well, not seem to be, actually the question was put, what can we do? And I was saying earlier on that Professor Robinson, while he was on last week, did mention that he was working on a piece. And I happen to have a copy of what he has written. And I want to, while we wait on calls to come in, I want to read at least, if not all of it, some of it. And this is how this is it. On August 1, 2023, I assumed the role of campus principal at the University of the West Indies, Five Islands, in Antigua and Barbuda, determined to make real the Vice Chancellor's call for the UWI to be an activist university. At my induction ceremony on January 27, 2024, I framed my principalship around what I called the Triple C crisis. The climate crisis, the crime crisis, and the chronic non-communicable disease crisis. Three interlocking emergencies destroying Caribbean lives, potential, and futures. After watching the 50th CARICOM Heads of Government opening ceremony in St. Kitts this week, I believe more than ever that confronting these crises cannot rest with politicians alone. It must rest with us, and let me say why I thought the stories of real people I know. Sorry, I read that wrong. It must rest with us, and let me see why through the real stories of people like I. And he starts with the brother and the mother, and goes like this. A brother sits in Anguilla, staring at his phone. The last message from his sister in Cuba reads, "They want us to die." His sister, their mother's daughter, born of a union with a Dominican man who settled in Cuba, lives on an island the United Nations warns is approaching humanitarian collapse. Cuba's America-imposed fuel blockade has closed schools, grounded aircrafts, darkened homes for 20 hours a day, and left garbage rotting in Havana's street. There are no half-sisters in Afro-Caribbean culture. She is his sister, and her crisis is his crisis. His mother wonders about her other son in Miami. Will I get the visa to attend his wedding? Can I get to see my child married? This family watched CARICOM's leader speak from the Marriott Dome in Basseterre on Tuesday night. their words felt both vital and hopelessly distant. They heard Jamaica's Andrew Holness warned that a prolonged crisis in Cuba will affect migration, security, and stability across the basin. They heard St. Kitts Terence Drew deliver an arithmetic that should terrify every leader in that room. Cuba's population is 9 to 12 million, excluding Haiti. The rest of the Caribbean does not amount to 10 million. And they heard Trinidad's Kamala Prasad Bissessa tell the room, to their delight, that crime is Trinidad and Tobago has fallen by 42%. They also heard who vexed loss, as she lauded President Trump and Secretary Rubio for deploying the U.S. military in Caribbean waters, declared she could not depend on CARICOM for security, and called the regional body unreliable. They heard about the dilemma around Cuba's political system. Our leaders had no dilemma about Cuba's political system when Cuba aid was being accepted. This newfound moral dilemma among some of our leaders seemed curious, as the leaders shared the room with the prominently seated Saudi delegation. A detail worth lingering on, given that no one at the podium or from the USA was demanding democratic elections from Riyadh. The brother turned off the television and his mother went to bed without an answer. The next morning, she saw a clip of President Trump joking about people being afraid to go out to fish during his State of the Union address. The wife who cannot sleep in the village of Fancy, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This is another story he's relating. A wife lies awake listening for the sound of her husband's boat engine. Since September 2025, the United States military has carried out at least 44 strikes against vessels in Caribbean and Pacific waters, killing at least 150 people. Washington calls them narco-terrorists. Families and governments say many were fishermen. Human Rights Watch has called the strikes unlawful and extrajudicial killings. This wife does not know geopolitics, but she knows the sea has always fed her family. She knows that tonight her husband is on the sea in a small boat that looks exactly like every other small boat that has been blown to pieces without evidence, without warning, without apology. She can see the lights of Vieux in St. Lucia across the water. The same waters where someone's partner died on a boat just like her husband's. It goes on, but I think it's Pigeon. I'll continue reading the rest of this next week because the whole article is worth reading. And anytime I have spare time on the program, I'll read the rest of it. And incidentally, I had promised some time ago when I read that letter from somebody in Cuba to finish. I never really finished that part, but interestingly enough, someone who follows the program religiously called Well, she called the station that relayed her number to me. So when I called, it's actually somebody who we know each other well, and she wanted to find out where she will be able to make a concrete contribution to the people, to Cuba. We are looking at it, and I spoke with Dr. James, and Dr. James is in turn is investigating how we could do that. And maybe when we do find out a way, we could point others who wish to make similar contributions to that whatever it is, through the embassy or through some organization, to make a contribution to ease the pressure in Cuba, however small it is. Like the person who was promising, I think it could go a long way to easing some of the pressure in Cuba. And she's willing to make whatever form of contribution, monetary, whatever form, she's willing to do so. So there are people around who are listening and following and who are concerned, just like us, about what's happening in Cuba, and who are willing to assist in easing the pressure that the people in Cuba are undergoing at this moment. Pigeon?
We have to pay tribute to the students in Cuba.
Yes.
For their bravery, for their courage. And I'm wondering whether or not there's any backup in the event that we have to recall students. Is the government thinking of any alternative source of education for these students, so that at least they could continue their education in the event that we are forced to recall them from the island itself?
Well, certainly I believe the government ought to be making preparation, because the way things look, it doesn't look, it looked to me, and as Dr. Kwashi indicated, that the ultimate aim for the people in the USA is to do something more drastic in Cuba, which, as you said, Pigeon, will definitely affect our students who are there studying at this point in time. So they ought to be looking at considering that and starting to make preparation. I think that's for a government to do. They need to be reading the signs.
Yeah, but the silence is
deafening and disturbing. Yeah. You see, this thing about government is more than a photo op. Yeah, it's more than that. And you see a lot of photo opportunities being spread on the media, social media in particular, but also our print media. But it's more than that. You have to show that you're really concerned about people's situation, particularly our students, as you're saying, and people living situation, And I, like you, I hope that preparations are being made for, in the event that things get worse. It's already terrible in Cuba, not by their own doing, but what is imposed by the foreign power. So we really need to make preparation.
Over 6 decades of pressure.
Yeah, you can imagine that. And over those 6 decades, Pigeon, remember, they've been helping people around the world.
Exactly.
The little bit that they have, they've been sharing it to help people around the world when there are moments of disaster, moments of whatever it is. And the Caribbean people have benefited massively. And us here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have benefited massively from Cuban resources. You can point to the airport construction. We can point to the whole medical mission, and so many other things. Students studying in Cuba.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, it's us. It's like our family. And our leaders currently need to really bear those things in mind. And sometimes you got to make sacrifices. So, sacrifice a visa opportunity or whatever it is to go to the United States. Yeah, so that's it. So let me remind our persons who want to call us, 457-9997 is the number to call. And that would take you. You can call us straight or call us via WhatsApp. I know that number would give you a WhatsApp connection or a straight connection. We have a caller now online, so let's take the person. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Hello, good morning.
Good afternoon to you. It might be morning in your area.
Afternoon.
Yes.
Good morning. Good afternoon to the panel.
Good afternoon to you.
I don't really know what is the topic, but being in and out, I've been hearing you talking about the Cubans.
Yes, that's part of it.
And I guess we're related to the Cuban doctors.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I could say, I don't know if you had saw the video with me doing an interview. This is Sister speaking.
Okay,
And,
Sister from Arnoldville.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay,
We
yes.
haven't heard from you in a while.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I'm keeping a low profile, battling cancer.
Oh,
And,
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So, I have to say I am an example from the Cuban doctors. They have done me a great deal. That I am still here on the land of living. I give God thanks and praise to them that the help they have given to me. And I don't know, as I said in my interview that I had, I don't know what would we do without them. They are some wonderful people.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really, really wonderful. Never mind some of them really the English, but as I said, I understand them and they understand me because I try to listen to them, And especially, I would have to mention Dr. Taylor.
Mm.
She is a wonderful person. She knows her onions. We have her here one more time. We don't want anybody else. That lady is just, I don't know. I just don't know how to explain that lady. She is very cautious. She knows what she's doing, because certain times I was on chemo, and there are times when they couldn't find veins and thing in my hand. And, she would do whatever she had to do. At one time, they had us to put it in my neck. And she told them, no way, she's not doing it. Because doing that, that is going to go to the fluid, whatever it is going to go to my heart, and she's not going to do it. And, she takes time out.
Mm-hmm.
She is, I don't know, she is such a wonderful person. Really, really, really wonderful. And I give God thanks and praise for them, and I think we need them around.
Mm-hmm.
We need them around to really help. Not me alone, but they have helped a lot of people. Because me going out to Georgetown, we are meeting up out there, and, they're good.
You said you're going out to Georgetown. You mean to the Modern Medical Center?
Yeah, Modern Medical is out there. I was doing whatever I had to do.
Okay.
Yes, and I've been meeting up with, other patients and so,
mm-hmm.
And, it was okay. So that's why you're not really hearing me per se, because I'm trying to keep a low profile, pertaining to my health.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, so God is good and doing what they asked me to do,
Now, how are you feeling these days, though? How are you feeling?
Not so bad. I had done, after I finished with my chemo, after they couldn't find any more veins, he decided to just let me off. So I went and I did a scan, and everything was okay. So right now I'm supposed to be doing 3 blood tests to go back to her in 3 months' time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there are others in St. Vincent.
Everything is good.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm sure there are others in St. Vincent and other people who are listening to us generally who share your situation. And I'm sure by you coming on and admitting to, sharing with us that you're suffering from this disease, that they're in solidarity with you. All of us are in solidarity with you.
Yes, so I'm battling it now, going in about 2 years now.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Duggan did my surgery.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
and then I was transferred to Georgetown.
Yeah. Well, keep up the fight and don't give up.
Yes.
Just
no.
Stay positive always.
Yes. Okay, then.
Well, thanks for calling.
Yes, there.
And have a good day. Yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you too.
Cecil, with sister, we just had an example of how international, what appears to be distant events affect people personally.
Personally, not personally. You know? Pijan. That's it. It's as close as that, and I don't know. Some people need to take all of these things into consideration. And while we were waiting on others to call us, let me just read our WhatsApp here from our good colleague and friend Kojo. He's saying, "Good morning. Hi, good morning. Anytime you read, you're ready to pick up or give up information to make contribution, I will be willing." That's to the Cuban cause. All right, Kojo, as usual. Kojo is always ready to make contributions. So, Kojo, you know for sure. You would know for sure, Kojo. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Can you speak directly into your phone, please, into your mouthpiece? We are hearing you. Go ahead.
That is what I'm doing.
Well, we were not hearing. Go ahead then. Sorry.
Yes, I too want to say that I think the Cubans here are doing a great job, and I don't want to see them go. Please. I am very much aware of what they're doing, and they're doing it well, and I hope that they will stay here with us because we need them around. They're important right now.
And can I ask you, I don't know if you're in tune. Oh, she's gone. I was going to ask. Are you there?
Oh.
I want to ask you, how do you feel about the situation in Cuba itself? You know, right now, the Cuban people are being subjected to a lot of pressure. How do you feel about that?
From what point?
Well, the government of the United States, well, over the years, it's a long time, but they're tightening the pressure right now on Cuba. So the people in Cuba right now are going through a very hard time, very rough time. So I was going to ask you, I don't know if you've been following.
Well, I am really perturbed in that sense because, I mean, there are people who help us greatly at all times, especially in disasters, and we should think that we should sympathize with them at all costs and make sure that we see what they're doing, that the Americans are doing to them, and we know it's not right. Even here with us, they have no calling in our waters. They're taking priority. And I think this should be stopped. Something to bring them to know that they are doing wrong. And they must stop it. Back to where they are and stay there. If they're helping us in other ways, we don't mind. We do accept it, but not in that kind of capacity that they're using on our people. Just now we wouldn't be able to get a piece of fish because the fishermen are fearful to go out and fish. Because they don't know what would be their experience over there. So they need to stop this nonsense and come to their senses and realize what they're doing is wrong. I am very upset about the whole thing. And I don't know what we have to do to stop it, but we should do something.
Mm-hmm.
Those that are in authority should make sure that they let them know that they're not satisfied with what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
But you're standing by us making sure that we keep the Cubans here, those who are here already. You're standing by that.
Of course.
Okay.
The doctors, they are very needed.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to keep them here. They're doing a very good job for the people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So we should make sure that they are here with us at all times. And don't take politics to make it a problem. Okay?
All right. Thanks for calling us this morning, and have a wonderful
welcome.
day. All right, then. Good. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
She spoke strongly, Pijan,
Yes, yes, yes.
and passionately, certainly in solidarity with Sister, who called us just before. Yeah, all right. So we have another call here. Let's take this one. Good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, good afternoon. What I'm doing, I'm calling in support of the Cubans. You know, I think they should be here forever.
Mhm.
Because one of the things they should do, they should naturalize them, make them citizens of St. Vincent and Grenadines, and send them back to Cuba, because they have been doing a great job. They help us a lot. So it would be very, I think it would not be nice to send them back to Cuba. That's my contribution.
But that you're making an interesting suggestion. He's gone. The suggestion he's making is that they should become citizens. Actually, interesting. I think. Well, of course, they themselves would have to express that interest and that desire. But certainly, I think what they call it, saying, in the event that they do, or even where they don't, we should take the initiative to recognize their contribution to the country and do that.
And put up no barrier.
Yes. We have another call. Pijan. Let's hear. Kojo, greetings. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning, Cecil. Good morning, Pijan.
Mm-hmm.
The last caller just took with my thunder, because that's the same point I was going to make.
Well, make it again. It would make your thunder stronger.
I personally think they need to just nationalize the people and them. How long they've been dead. I don't care if they've been dead 10 months, 3 months. If Cuba is going through a trouble like that you're going to send them back home in a pressure case.
No, well, that is not. Hold on, Coach. Let's clarify. That is not on the agenda yet, in terms of sending them back home. But we'll say preempt that.
Did you hear the NDP say? Did you hear the NDP say that they're going to phase them out?
Well, yeah, they did. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my point. If you want to
take them out of the system. Take them out of the system. But yeah, I see your point.
Yeah. So instead of having to curtail to the American system, asking, you nationalize them so it becomes incentive. You don't have to send them on away, and you have no pressure.
Correct. Good strategy.
No, you're under no pressure to America anymore, because you can't send incentive to Cuba.
Yes. Good strategy.
Yeah, so it killed the whole thing right then.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have no problem on hand anymore.
Well, you mean Prime Minister Friday? Let's be formal. Dr. Friday.
Prime Minister Friday.
Yes.
Dr. Friday. He has no problem on his hand anymore. So it's an easy fix. It's that they didn't have fixed. You're doing what they call it? It's investment, some investment citizenship. That's a big investment there.
You mean citizenship by investment?
I was about to say.
Yeah,
okay.
That's a big investment there.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest investment. Direct help to the people. Direct. Sister says she don't want them go. The other lady said she don't want them go. So, and I'm quite sure if this program was to be heard by everybody in St. Vincent I mean, I know that not everybody listens to WFM. I guarantee you, you will have about 75% of the population saying that they don't want the Cubans go. I mean, there will be people who don't want them to be for other reasons, but trust me, they kind of help by him. Like that guy who got his stomach cut out and they put back in his intestine. You think he want to see them Cuban go? Nah. So, I mean, you can't have a valuable something in your hand and give it up because some
asset that you can use in investment.
Yeah.
Yes. As in citizens by investment.
Yes. That doesn't say that investment about it.
Yes.
You can't beat that. You can't. Nobody can stop you. That's your country. You could give citizenship to who you want.
Yes.
So nobody could stop you. So I mean that's the best way to go. You start the program with the Cubans and we will see how that go after that.
Yeah,
that was my call.
Good suggestion, Kojo. So
yeah, that was my call.
Yes. All right then. Thanks for calling and have a good day.
You too.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting take on that one in terms of what strategy to use. Sounds simple, but it is effective. Sounds effective. Yeah. Offer citizenship status to all the Cubans who are here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Once they desire.
Yeah, once it's their desire. That's a good way to go. So you don't have to deal with no other problem, no other pressure. Simple and straight. And incidentally, I noticed that Honduras is taking this step to expel the Cuban medical mission out of Honduras. It was reported just recently. And language is not a problem. People in Honduras speak Spanish. Cubans speak Spanish, so it's not a question of language. So there are other considerations there. Yeah.
What kind of human being would deliberately put policies in place that they know will lead to the demise of another human being?
Funny enough, I was asking my niece that only this morning.
And against human beings who pose no threat whatsoever to them.
More than that, few human beings who help other human beings to improve their lives and their living. You know? That's the question.
And who would give them support in their actions like that?
So let's hear how other people feel about this. 457-9997 is the number you might wish to call us and share your views with us. Tell us how you feel about the situation. That or not any other, as a matter of fact. Or have you benefited from the service of the Cubans in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? You know, let's share with us. I have, and I'm impressed and I'm pleased with their service. So have you? And what do you feel? How do you feel? Yeah. Against the odds of pressure from the big one, or the big one from the North, let's hear how you feel. Are you fearful that you might lose your opportunity for a visa? Or, I don't know. Let's see how we feel. 457-9997 is the number to call. And that would take you to the direct number or to the WhatsApp number. Earlier on, we heard from Dr. Kwashi Lansford. I read a statement, the statement put up by CARICOM. I started to read a piece by Professor Robinson, and we've had a number of calls so far, calls and WhatsApp messages responding to the conversation this morning. Let's hear from you, 457-9997. In the meantime, Pichan, I will take it upon myself to read another part of the statement the piece by Dr. Robinson. So I'll begin from where I had left off. Bearing in mind I don't have a lot of time remaining. All right, so here it goes. The CMOS vendor, the boutique owner, and the factory worker in Antigua. A CMOS vendor does his accounts. His profit margins depends on bottles sourced at the China price. Not any other price, the China price. When Washington pressures Caribbean nations to sever ties with Beijing, it is not a diplomatic abstraction to him. It is the survival of his enterprise. A small island cannot eat geopolitics. It must eat. When one global power offers you bullets and the other offers you bottles, a small island's choice is not a moral one, but a survival instinct. In Grenada, a boutique owner stocks affordable fashion sourced from Shein. This is not a confession. It is the reality of retail in a small island developing state. When supply chains are weaponized in great power competition, she is a woman watching her margins vanish. In Trinidad, a factory worker clocks in every morning at a plant where business depends on exports to the Eastern Caribbean under CARICOM Common External Tariff. When the Prime Minister calls, meaning the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, when she calls the region body unreliable, she wonders, unreliable for whom? That tariff is her paycheck. And someone in the Eastern Caribbean, a high school, wants a computer lab that may never arrive. The school did not choose Chinese technology over any other. There is no similar offer from anywhere. The student will not understand the geopolitics, but they will understand that everyone talks about coding, but they still do not have the computer. I'm going on still. Every person above is living inside the triple C crisis, whether they name it so or not. The climate crisis is here. Hurricane Melissa made landfall in Jamaica on October 28, 2025, as one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded, with winds of 185 miles per hour, killing at least 95 people and causing an estimated $48 to $52 billion in damage. Cuba's eastern provinces, still recovering from Melissa, have no fuel to run recovery operations. Our reefs are bleaching, our coastlines are eroding, and our aquifers are sanitizing. The crime crisis is on our deepest wound. What are people who know how to love? Sorry, let me read it again. We are people who know how to love, and that is what makes the violence so incomprehensible. In 2024, Trinidad and Tobago recorded a homicide rate of approximately 45.7 per 100,000. Jamaica, approximately 40 per 100,000, and roughly 8 to 9 times the United States rate. The wife in fancy is afraid not only of American missiles, but her sons will become statistics in a crisis that predates any foreign intervention and will outlast every foreign policy. She cannot accept the extrajudicial bombing of boats in the best we can do to solve the crime crisis. It is too easy to write off or to write the role of American-made guns and American addiction out of the Caribbean drug and crime story. The NCD crisis hides behind our beauty. We are not only the beach, reggae, and carnival capitals of the world, we are also the hypertension and diabetes capital of the world. Over a third of Caribbean adults are hypertensive, and barely a third have their blood pressure controlled. I am one of the victims and take my meds daily. The CMOS vendor is, without knowing it, part of the solution, promoting indigenous nutritious products in a region that imports too much of what it eats. Go down to the woman nobody elected. Let me tell you about a woman I know who runs a small community health initiative in the Eastern Caribbean. No government funding, no foreign grant, just a conviction that her neighbors should not die from conditions of a blood pressure cough, that a blood pressure cough of God. All right, I have to take a break. Somebody's calling, so let's go to the call. Greetings, welcome to the program.
Yeah, hail up and greeting brother Cecil, Pijan, and the brother in the studio and all the listeners, Bungo Shak here. And thanks for taking a call. I didn't want to interrupt you because well, you was really very interested. So when I'm about to call you, you start back reading. But see, look at the time and say, wow, let me get in quickly anyway. Yeah, brother Cecil, very interesting this morning. That's why I've been listening. Pijan, I like answer your question, eh? You asked about what really, I ask myself the same question about human being, because we who having that question within ourselves is supposed to have love and concern for human being. Okay? So I ask myself the same thing. Why does they do that to people? Right? But in relation to Cuba, right, with these sanctions so on, because you're not putting pressure much on the government per se. At least you do, but the people foremost that feels it. But what it does that. It's a hegemony of the United States and a narrative. What they do that so they could put pressure on your citizens. They could uprise your citizens, especially when they're looking to have regime change, as they were looking to do throughout the years. For the past maybe 6 years or so, Cecil, they have embargo and so on against Cuba, somewhere around that years. And you see, so they do all these things, so that's why they tried in Iran. And then you have people go and uprise and then you say, oh, government is not doing that for us, so let's go in now and help out these people. But it's a thing that I see it wrong totally. Putting tariff on people and embargo and deciding who must trade with you and who must give you this and that. That's totally wrong. There's no law give United States that permission to do, not even United Nations, unless there's some threatened situation going on where war is going to happen. There's nothing like that. And I think it's time enough that you all stand up against these things, no matter how much power you have. I say war is more powerful in diplomatic discussions and so on. Towards you can get changes and so on, right? It's just how you go about it, and you speak from your heart. It will imprint in the order that you speak into. That's how I see it. But I agree for the people that do have to, they're on the end of this kind of thing, that they have to feel so much pressure. And what I'm hearing, I don't hear much news on it now. Just recently Trump is saying that he going to give South American companies license that they can carry oil into Cuba. But I'm trying to monitor, see if I pick up any more news on it, because he just sitting out his head when he ready. So I'm listening to see, but certain
Well,
friendly
Bongo Shaka, just last week, the Secretary of State's Marco Rubio of the United States, part of Trump right-hand man, met with the heads of government in our region, CARICOM. How do you feel about that?
You see, as one was saying, asking a question, why is it that, that people have to follow and take what these people are saying? You have to know the American system working, especially now you have Trump there and see what's taking place, right? So sometimes you have to be so diplomatic or so wise in what you're saying or doing right now in deal with United States.
But you're not answering my question. Come more direct so I could understand what you're saying. Are you saying that it was correct for the heads to be diplomatic rather than having a frank discussion with the Secretary of States? Is that what you're saying? Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Oh, I'm going to come up to that, I like to put in like a thing.
Yeah, but we don't have a lot of time remaining. You have about 2 minutes remaining.
Let me come to it quickly. Yeah. What I'm saying, you could be forceful also in your reason, that being presumptuous, aggressive, but forceful. Know that, look, we're not accepting what you're doing here. We want to have this peace among our people, and we want to have good relation with you. We think that you should have please get in touch with us, and we negotiate and so on, so on, so on. So you can't be the timidity and showing like you're afraid. You see? So you look at the scenario in Sahel state with Mali.
So my question to you was, do you feel our heads got what we deserve out of that interaction with Secretary of State Rubio?
No, I don't think we got a result because we didn't directly focus on that situation, especially that was right into that setting with the blowing up of the boats and so on. We should be more forceful on that. And I think, as I said...
When you say we, you mean the heads should have been... talking about the heads.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And you remember the first incident when I brought with Kamala Passad in United West. You see that woman there?
Prime Minister Kamala Passad.
Right. If you remember that, I said she's looking there, indication. Hey, and you see what she's saying? So what she uttered there, I think it should be probably in a closed door session when you have the closed door. But you see those things where she uttered there and praying up America, that alone is bringing another spirit of division again among the community of states. I'm seeing that. That's what's happening. Once you have one pulling, all pistons should be working, firing the same. Once you have one in firing properly, you have problem with your power and your speed. So I think that I didn't like she utterance. That's why Mayor Martley utter something against her. And I agree with Mayor Martley from Barbados. And talking about kidnapping and all these things. The people that make an arrest, or you could say the kidnap. Why she don't talk about, why she didn't come out and say, I thought she'd have come out and tie it into the kidnapping of Maduro. But she cannot say that because she's right up with Trump and them. You see, so that's bringing division, Cecil and Pigeon listeners. It's not right what she do. I mean, say, yes, you have your interest in your own country, but when you're working as one body and you have a session like that, you cannot speak that way. Maybe you speak on the sideline as what they do or in private, not in the public domain with thousands of us listening. And you want to play up now because you want the United States, you the big boss or big queen in the Caribbean. No, and showing pointers at different leaders. It's not right what she's doing.
Bongo Shaka, you have to type because you have less than a minute to
type. Yeah, okay, I'm tying up now for 40, 60 seconds. I'm going to strengthen something what the name Weeks said, Mr. Weeks, Brother Weeks, right? About racist connotation. You see the Indian Trinidad, you see that same Prime Minister, I'm looking at her recently, and I've been listening some historic facts on Trinidad with the Indian and so on. History, I never dig up. I say one of Dr. Fraser see some of these things. But this tell you, those Indians that came in there, and we always call indentured servants, they would hide and slave. Some that actually was like slaves and used to get beat up to another, and they were from the lowest class in India. Because in India, you know,
All right, Bongo Shaka, we got time.
Yeah, so when they come and project
I'll play the
cell phone with
song.
black
I'll
music,
play the song, the rest of the song to tie up what you're saying.
Right. So I leave that for another discussion. But I
Yes.
just want to add, I agree with Brother Weeks.
All right then. Thanks for
Thanks
calling.
a lot and have a blessed week. And hail up Joel Day for me. Joel, I hope you listen. Bless up yourself.
All right then. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Cecil. Yeah.
All right, so that's about it for us. And as I indicated, I'll play the tune, the rest of the tune. So this is the rest of the tune, Calypso.
Black minds in Tobago, she's working on them with ease. But she's not afraid because monkeys say cool breeze. She said the last time she was easy, this time there is no room for mistakes. Cause when she's done with Tobago, it's either they make or break. She has her eyes on Maruga, especially Samuel Cooper. They got a lot of P&M houses, but none of them can remember. She's buying some in 6 company because they're nice, they're bad and they're trim. Their ancestors came from Africa and all of them is Americans. She passed through the company and she bunks up Madingo. Well, boy, she makes she name cause she get Africans for Africans for sale. Buying Africans. Kill them. Africans for sale. Listen this. We buying Africans. Dog Fizerbad was pretty serious with her eating the cemetery. He said I'm waiting for refinery point. That man had to be crazy. What? Africans for sale. We buying good or bad. Africans for sale, to be go and Trinidad. I never meet to cohesive man so. She said my people are loyal, they don't vote for other parties. But them P&M people just show them some money, stack and roti. She said I have my safe seats in the safe hands of Caroni. She go on to Vancouver, straight down to see Paris. She said, I love my people. For 10 years, we out to the rain. But when I get back in there, things will never be the same. To all of my people, you must get your rightful place. And I don't care who's sitting there and think I am talking race. You all know what's hurting me. You see that, Dr. Rowley? We don't hide up on we money. The damn man change the currency. Hey! Africans for sale, hey! Buying Africa. Kill them. Africans for sale. We buying Africa. They bought out PSA. They got them for 10%. Now they could beat the chest and laugh because they know it's money well spent. All their love, all their Africans for sale. We buying good or bad. Africans for sale.
So I'll play the rest of that in as much as Bongo Shaka raised it easy, but I think every time I hear that Calypso, it makes me laugh. By Queen Victoria, I think that's the name. It never made it to the final because she was banned from the that semi-final that they usually have. The Fiesta. All right, so that's it for us today. Fijan,
Cecil, permit me to
yes, of course,
acknowledge the passing of one of our student athletes from the Central Youth Secondary School, Ali McDowell.
Oh.
She got involved in an altercation in November of 2024 and never really recovered.
I remember that.
Yeah, so
she passed.
I understand that she passed away today.
Yeah. Oh, so sad.
And I want to extend condolences to the family, to the school,
Mm-hmm.
and especially to Mr. Morgan, who was her mentor, coach and mentor.
Okay.
And wondering also about the persons who were involved in it. The two might be in some hot water at this stage.
And that's another student, a student?
And another student from, I think it's from another school.
Oh boy. Yeah. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Mm-hmm. All right, so hopefully I'll be able to read the rest of that piece from Professor Robinson next week. It's long, but I'll try to read it.
But the calypso you play there.
Yeah, this one.
It's really interesting and sad that in 2026 we're still talking about selling Africans.
Yeah, well,
and I hope our students could relate to the sentiments expressed in that.
I hope they. Well, I don't know if they would have access. It's on YouTube anyway. It's there, so they should be able to access it. And it's the name of the calypso is Africans for Sale, and it's by Queen Victoria. And this year's calypso out of Trinidad and Tobago.
Although I don't believe in banning, freedom of expression should prevail, no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Well,
you could express your thoughts against it, but don't necessarily ban it.
But that's it. That's the thing in Trinidad now, because apparently not only her, but one who was involved, the guy who was I think it was Helan Francis. He was the king from Emmanuel from last year. This year, he's singing a critic of what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago. And at some point during his presentation, they turned his microphone down, and people could be heard. Heard a person telling another person to turn the microphone, mute the microphone. So it is happening in Trinidad today. The whole question of freedom of expression is in fact, it's also here in St. Vincent. To be honest about it, it's under attack, and we need to be aware of it and to fight it. Freedom of expression, Anyway, so let's end our own freedom of expression now by saying thanks to all those persons who called the program. Of course, a big thanks going out to Lansford and, of course, Dr. Kwashi and all the other callers who have contributed. And we were able to read the statement from CARICOM and part of what Professor Robinson has written. And I want to thank all those persons. And I just want to again express some solidarity with Sister, health struggles. And for the others who called to express solidarity and to insist, not really insist, but to request that we make sure that we keep the Cubans here, period. Keep the Cubans here. And the two persons made a suggestion as to how the government might wish to go about it. Make them citizens, offer them citizenship, and that's one way of doing it. So we would follow up on that and see how it goes from there. Okay, so my name is Cecil Ryan on behalf of Philbert, and my niece was here not saying anything, and she wasn't asked to say anything. And of course, Karen. Good afternoon and have a pleasant day.